Hello students, welcome to my channel Edu Knowledge Hub. This is Soumya Das, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmaceutics, Bengal School of Technology, Sugandha, Hooghly. Today I have come up with the topic on angina pectoris. In this video I will be discussing about the pathophysiology, the diagnosis and the management of the angina pectoris. So I have picked this particular topic from the subject of hospital and clinical pharmacy, which may be applicable for the B Pharm or the diploma or for the PharmD students. So let us first have a look on what are the course outcomes I want you people to understand after watching this video. So in this video I want to make you understand about the concept of angina pectoris. I want you people to be able to relate the symptoms and the disease, to identify the causes of the disease, a brief idea about its management and understanding the different risk factors associated with this particular disease. Now, before going in the details, we need to discuss that what is angina pectoris, or the different pronunciation comes like angina. Many people also pronounce it like the angina only. So, it has different pronunciation in different parts of the world, but here I pronounce it as the angina pectoris, and it is mainly this is the first characteristic feature which is seen in the angina. Now, angina is sometimes confused with the heart attack, but we can say that angina is not a heart attack, but it's a symbol or it's a sign of increased risk of the heart attack. Now, angina pectoris is a primary symptom is inadequate, or there is a decrease in the coronary blood flow to supply the required oxygen to the heart. So, these are the various, you can say, factors which are associated with the angina, and sometimes, as I told, it is confused with the heart attack. Now, let us see that what is myocardial ischemia and how it is correlated by this angina. Now, myocardial ischemia is a disorder which occurs when the blood flow to the heart muscle is called as the myocardium, is obstructed. It is partially or complete blockage of the coronary artery may be there, or there will be the development of the plaques due to the atherosclerosis. Now, if you have gone through my previous videos, I have kept a video for the atherosclerosis in my channel also. Now, mainly this atherosclerosis says that deposition of the plaque, or you can say deposition of some cholesterol or some fat inside the blood vessels, so that there is a blockage and the blood cannot flow properly through the blood vessels. So, there is a risk of hypertension, or you can say the pressure exerted by the blood on the walls of this arteries, they increases. Now, this atherosclerosis, sometimes what happens is the plaque which is deposited, or the cholesterol, the fat which is deposited, it breaks down to the pressure of the blood, and this plaque generally it breaks down and form as a thrombus which can block any kind of the blood vessels. Now, in connection to that, what happens, the blood which is used to flow to your myocardium, which carries the blood to the myocardium, the flow of the blood decreases, as a result of which there is a shortage of the oxygen to the myocardium, and this leads to the myocardial ischemia. Now, if the plaque ruptures, as I told, if the plaque ruptures, you can have a heart attack also, which is called as the myocardial infarction. Now, these are some of the important terminologies, or you can say these are some of the important disorders which are also associated with the angina. You can see I have kept some figures. The first one shows the myocardium, that is the heart muscle, you can say, and next is the blood clot, you can see which is present in the coronary artery. Generally, this blood clot will prevent the flow of the blood, and it will decrease the amount of the oxygen which reaches your heart muscles, and directly it can lead to the production of the angina. Now, when you talk about the symptoms of the angina, so mainly it is characterized by a painful chest, or you can say pain in the chest, which is quite severe. Next, it can be characterized by the chest discomfort, like the person who is suffering from this disorder, he can feel a sensation of discomfortness in the area, in the chest region, a pressure or a heaviness, sometimes tightness or squeezing, burning or choking sensation also. There is a pain in the epigastrium region, that is the upper central abdomen. which moves to the back or the neck area, the jaw or the shoulder. So these are the auxiliary parts where the pain is felt during the angina. Now there is some referred pain in the inner left arm, like the pain which is radiating from your chest towards the left arm. So you can have a referred pain there, which can move to the shoulders and sometimes into the neck, into the jaw also. Now precipitated by the exertion, sometimes what happens is this angina is precipitated or it is seen in case of the emotional stress, or when the person is exerted, like doing the physical activity, or he is in the emotional stress condition. Now during this cases only there is a chances that the person develops this angina. Now this is exaggerated by having a full stomach or during the cold temperature also, like we have seen that there is the chances of getting the angina is more in case of the people who are staying in the colder temperature as compared to the hot temperature or the hot climate persons. Now the pain may be accompanied by breathlessness, sweating, nausea, and in some cases the person feels a sense of discomfortness in sitting or standing in whatever he is doing. Now, if you talk about the major risk factors of the angina, it comprises of the cigarette smoking, or if the person is suffering from diabetes or high cholesterol, or he is having the episode of the high blood pressure, or they have the sedentary lifestyle, or sometimes angina is also carried in the genes, like if they are having the family history of premature heart disease. So in these conditions the person develops this angina. Now talking about the different types of angina, we have mainly three types of angina. The first one is the stable angina. It is also called as the effort angina. The name it says that when a person is giving some effort, like physical activity he is doing, then he will be getting this type of the angina. And this is the classic type of angina which is mainly referred or related to the myocardial ischemia, mainly narrowed arteries due to the atherosclerosis. Now I told you that myocardial ischemia is a disorder, atherosclerosis is a disorder. Now these are all connected disorders. Like if you are suffering from atherosclerosis, then there is a development of the plaque. Now when the plaque is there, definitely there is a decreased blood flow, and when decreased blood flow is there, then the oxygen supplying to the heart decreases, as a result of which there is a development of the angina. So this atherosclerosis, the myocardial ischemia and the angina, they are the correlated disorders. Now there is a typical symptom in case of stable angina is the chest discomfortness and associated symptoms which generally exaggerate when you are going for some physical activity like running or walking. Now this symptoms, they can non-exist, or you can say they can subside when the person takes the rest, or after a person takes the sublingual nitroglycerin. That means when the person is doing some work in the physical excited condition, he may get the symptoms, but when he comes to the rest position, the symptoms can subside. Along with this, if the person takes the dose of nitroglycerin, then also this angina can be, you can say the symptoms can decrease. Now symptoms typically abate several minutes after the activity. As I told you that the symptoms will be abating, it will be going out after several hours or several minutes of the activity, and if you are again performing the same activity, the symptoms can resume. Now in this way, this is a stable angina, and it is sometimes related to intermittent like claudication symptoms. Now other recognized precipitants of stable angina are the cold weather, as I told, cold weather, or this if heavy metal exposure or emotional stress also. Now this stable angina is the most common angina which is seen in the cases where the age is more than 40 years of age. Now when you talk about the unstable angina, it is also called as the crescendo angina, and this is the form of acute coronary syndrome. Now this angina is connected to the acute coronary syndrome. It is characterized by mainly three features, that is it occurs at the rest also, when the person is not doing any kind of physical activity, then also this angina can occur, and usually it lasts more than 10 minutes. When you talk about the stable angina, it can last up to few minutes, but not more than 15 to 20 minutes. But when you talk about the unstable angina, generally it lasts for more than 10 minutes, and it is severe and of new onset. That means beforehand the person has not felt any pain of angina, but immediately it comes, or at the first onset it comes, and it stays for a longer period of time. Now the third property of the feature, it occurs distinctly more severe, prolonged or frequent than the before. Like if you are having a stable angina and after 6 weeks or 10 weeks you got the severe unstable angina, then this will be characterized as the unstable angina. Now the name crescendo angina is taken because this crescendo, the graph of this angina is in the crescendo shape. Now it may occur unpredictably at the rest, which may be a serious indicator of an impending heart attack. Like this type of angina is, the person suffering from this type of angina are the higher risk people who can get the heart attack. The pathophysiology of the unstable angina is the reduction of the coronary blood flow due to the transient platelet aggregation on apparently normal endothelium generally, or the coronary artery spasms or coronary thrombosis. Now these are the three important factors, or you can say three important reasons why a person develops this unstable angina. The first one is the reduction of the coronary flow due to transient platelet aggregation. Next is coronary artery spasms or coronary thrombosis. Now these three are the important factors. Now the process starts with the atherosclerosis. As I told in the previous slide that these diseases are correlated. So the process of unstable angina, it also relates to the atherosclerosis, the progress through the inflammation to yield an active unstable plaque which undergo thrombosis. Like the plaque is deposited and this plaque gets detached and it forms the thrombosis and result in the acute myocardial ischemia, which cannot be reversed, and this leads to the cell necrosis. That means the cells of the heart, they dies. Now the studies has shown that 64% of all the unstable angina, they occur at the night in or in the early morning, that is from 10 p.m. to morning 8 o'clock. Now this is the time when the persons are at the resting period and they have the heart attack. So the person cannot, the patient cannot diagnose, or he is unable to understand what's happening with him. Now coming to the pathophysiology of this angina, now you can see that I have kept three things here. The first one is the atherosclerosis, second is the arterial spasm, and next is the atherosclerosis including the plaque and the thrombus. Now if you talk about the atherosclerosis, this is a disease which occurs gradually, leads to the obstruction of the blood vessels. When you talk about the arterial spasm, now this is sudden and this is reversible, which leads to the obstruction of the blood vessels. When you talk about the atherosclerosis including plaque and the thrombus, it is a sudden impact and it is irreversible in nature, so the occlusion occurs. Now in this three condition, the second stage will be the ischemia, and after the ischemia happens, it is the hypoxia, that means the reduced oxygen level. Next is the reduced oxygen level which leads to the angina, and lastly is the thrombolysis, which is called as the unstable angina. So this is the pathophysiology of the unstable angina. Now coming to the diagnosis of the angina pectoris, so we have different methods to diagnose, but the first important method is the ECG, that is called as the electrocardiogram. Now this test records the electrical activity of the heart, which is used to diagnose the heart abnormality like your arrhythmias, or to show the ischemia to the heart. The second test is the stress test without imaging. Now in this case, the heart monitoring test is done to evaluate how well your heart is performing during the stress conditions. Mainly the person is kept to perform some physical exercise like your treadmill or walking, and ECG is recorded during this period, and the ECG is assessed by the doctors to see that whether the graph or the curve or the peaks, they have any kind of changes or not. Third thing is the blood test. Now this test can identify the enzyme like the troponin. Now this troponin is the enzyme which leaks into the blood after your heart has suffered from severe kind of the angina or the heart attack. So the doctor can prescribe, or they can ask you to go through the blood test to find out the level of the troponin, and they can find out that whether the person has some episode of the angina. They can also go for the testings like elevated cholesterol or the LDLs or the triglyceride to find out the risk of the coronary artery diseases. So these are the first line of tests which has been or which should be performed on the patient, and if you get a confirmatory result here, then you can move for the other set of the test. The other set of the test includes the chest x-ray, like seeing any abnormality in your chest, mainly the heart, or to find out the symptoms. If the person is having the symptoms of the pneumonia, then the doctor can just differentiate between the angina and the pneumonia. Otherwise, the doctor can suggest you for the CT scan of the chest. Now, this is a more sensitive test than the chest x-ray, where you can find out the presence of the blood clots. Okay, the imaging test combines us x-rays to see the multiple images of your chest and the heart. The third type of test is the coronary computed tomography angiography. This is called as the CT angiography, and in this test it evaluates the coronary arteries through which the blood flows, or you can say the blood carries the oxygen to the heart, and it is done to see that whether this coronary arteries they have narrowed or there is any change in the size and shape of this coronary arteries. Now generally a contrast material is injected to your veins, and by which you can see the angiography, or it can go and give you the angiograph. Now next test is the MRI, we call as the magnetic resonance imaging. The primary purpose of this exam is to determine whether there is a good flow of the blood to your heart muscles or not. Now if the areas where the decreased blood flow is there, there will be an indication of the plaque or the deposition, which can be easily marked by this MRI scan. The next test will be the catheter angiography. This is the invasive imaging test. A thin long plastic tube called as a catheter is inserted in the artery in your groin area or the hand using a needle. The catheter is guided with a wire into the coronary arteries and is used to inject contrast material directly into the coronary arteries to determine whether there is a narrowing of blood vessels or not. Now this images of the contrast material in the blood vessels are captured by the x-rays. So if there is a blockage, then the contrast material will go and block over there. So there you will get the high imaging, or you can say you get the brighter image there. So the doctor can say that yes, there is a blockage in this portion of your heart. Next is the echocardiogram. Now this test is a transducer that produces the high frequency sound waves, and it is used to create the moving images of your heart, like your heart is beating properly or not. The motion of the walls of the heart is evaluated. If there is a decrease in the motion of the heart, particularly to a particular portion, then we say that there is a decrease in the blood flow to the particular portion. Next is the myocardial single photo emission computed tomography, that is called as the SPECT. Now this is a stress test with imaging is performed with a nuclear medicine tracer, like a small or very minimum dose of the nuclear medicine tracer is given. During an imaging stress testing, the patient is usually asked to perform some kind of the physical activity like walking or using the treadmill. If the patient is unable to perform, then there are certain drugs which are given to the patient to mimic the heart response when like the person is in the activity stage or it is in the physical activity stage. A radioactive tracer is injected, as I told, a very small concentration is injected, and we see that whether the heart muscles, the radio imaging which is which we got or which we are getting from this kind of test, whether it is normal or not. Like the areas where the blockage will be there, that will be more radiating. The areas where blockage is not there, that will be in the normal condition. So this is the very costly test that is called as the SPECT test. Now coming to the management of the angina pectoris, there is a first line of treatment is the lifestyle modifications or smoking cessation, moderate or intense activity. The doctor can say you to have moderate to intense activity depending on your type of angina, like weight management. If you are obese, then to lose weight, limit the alcohol and the sodium consumption. You have to increase the diet in fresh fruits and vegetables, consumption of low fat dairy, controlling your blood pressure, lipid management and diabetes management. So these are the first line of treatment which the doctor will try to implement so that the patient comes out from the state of the angina without any kind of the medication. Now if the patient is not coming out from the state of the angina and the episode is repeated very frequently, then we can go for the pharmacological treatment. Now this pharmacological treatment has various drugs like your anticoagulants. If there is a presence of the clot, then we can go for the anticoagulants like aspirin or clopidogrel, etc., so that the clot will be automatically dissolved. Or if the blood is thickened, then the blood will be the viscosity of the blood will be decreased and the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood can increase. Second is the renin angiotensin aldosterone system blockers like your enalapril, lisinopril, ramipril, captopril, etc. The third is the beta blockers like propranolol, pindolol, timolol, etc. They are the non-selective ones. Selective ones are the atenolol, metoprolol, etc. Next is the calcium channel blockers like amlodipine, diltiazem, felodipine, verampril. These are the calcium channel blockers. And lastly are the nitrates like isosorbide, mononitrate or dinitrate, etc. Now these drugs are given according to the type of the angina or the severity of the angina. So dear students, this was the pathophysiology, the diagnosis and the management of the angina. These are some of the references from where I have taken some materials for my presentation. So if you have any doubt in the presentation or if you have any doubt in this video, so you can drop a mail to the mail IDs mentioned here, or you can drop some comment in the video, in the comment box of the video. Don't forget to subscribe my channel, that is the Edu Knowledge Hub. I will be coming with more videos so that you can understand or you can learn about more about the pharmacy. Till then, have a nice day. Thank you. Bye bye.